Welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome.
Happy to have you all. Thank you for joining. And
Yes, it's our first
yeah,
episode of many.
first of many. That's right. There's an unlimited amount of things we can really talk about, and I don't really have any kind of thing top of mind other than something that's kind of like come up again in my head is like relapses and like self forgiveness recently.
Okay.
And a lot of that has to do with like starting up this job again and looking at like you know my past patterns of this job and like needing Adderall or Vyvanse to keep it up. And took like a mental health break. It did like 3 months off. And I think this was a big concern. And what I'm realizing is the more I talk about that kind of fear out loud, the less power it kind of has over me. And I don't know if you've had anything kind of like similar, like in your experience like that too, Ricky, where it's something like that can have power over you so long as you aren't like acknowledging what it is that's driving that anxiety, right? Like, really leaning into it and like looking at that emotion like physically in your body, kind of like being like, what is it? Like there's like this kind of like undercurrent, if you will, of like, and I think this might be true for all addicts, is like there's always like that tension right under the surface, right? Of like wanting to pull back into that old lifestyle, that old pattern of behavior, and like really examining kind of what it is that's driving that, and like,
Yeah.
what are those triggers, and and how can you change your environment to kind of help overcome what you used to rely on, or like that pattern that you had created.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, as you said, work. For me at least, it was stress related. You know, coming home thinking about working however long you work for, coming home and cracking that beer. After that first beer, kind of feeling good, and then the stress kind of goes away. Then you're thinking like, you know what, maybe one more. Next thing you know, you're like 6, 7 deep. You're like, you know what, let's go to the bar. So you're trying to get that vibe continue to go and whatnot. So
yeah, it's that comfort.
Hold on to. Yeah.
It's
almost like a warm blanket holding you. You're like,
right.
Let me take this outside.
And I think it's important too to recognize like it isn't something that's like you plan on doing. Like it's not like you plan on going in hard every time, right? And
Dude, it's just that was like in college. Every time, man, it'd be the nights you didn't plan on going hard. The nights you always went the hardest.
The hardest, yep. And then you wake up, and I think it's different too, right? Especially when you're in college or you're younger, because you're able to physically bounce back a lot quicker, And as we get older, you really start to see the damage it does on your psyche, like the next, over the next day, next week, even just almost like an immediate like I shouldn't be doing this, or like knowing what the limits are, like what's driving that, and
those things I see them on social media all the time, but it's like the Sunday scaries. I've never heard of that until recently.
Oh my gosh!
I like those gummies. I'm like, bro, if you need some type of CBD gummy to get over your hangovers on Sundays because of the Sunday scaries, like either you shouldn't be drinking or you're doing something else in the meantime. Like
that's a good point. That's a good point. Let's dive into that a little bit.
That should not be okay.
How long ago did we start seeing like that Sunday scary thing? I think that must have been. A few years ago.
Yeah, I really didn't pick up on it until recently, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
It started with that. You could buy them at the stores now. It's a little shot, like the morning something.
Oh, right. Playing into that.
Yeah, I saw those a while back. I was like, damn, I should get a bunch of those. And then you go to Amazon, they're like $50 for like 12. My I'd rather just do the hangover. like that's like half your bar tab right there. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, I'm not gonna deal with that because you gotta drink like 3 of them, I think, or whatever. It's like you drink before, drink during, and then one before you go to sleep. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you're flying through that. You know?
So I'm like, that's okay.
And that's interesting to me too. Like, and I like, from like a marketing standpoint, the fact that like all of a sudden out of nowhere they started calling it like the Sunday scaries, because like to me when I heard the Sunday scaries, I was thinking like people are scared of going to work on Monday. That's how I interpret it. Like, oh damn, it's this. Oh shit, I got to go back to the office. Like, and because I never really had the hangovers, but I had the high anxiety, right? And so like,
but that's what it is. That's like it's trying to help you get over that anxiety.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
that shouldn't like
you can't be having. You got to change. You got to, and that's like a good point too, because like. Even if you don't love your job or your current situation, right? Like you shouldn't be scared of facing what it is in order to get to where you want to go. And the
Yeah.
fact that like society constantly, especially in like the digital age, right? Like you're on your Instagram or TikTok and you're constantly saying I should be scared on Sunday. Like this is something that's like being drilled into you from corporate America. And for the most part, a lot of people go back and work at that corporate America, right? And so
Yeah.
again, it's like corporate America has tapped into the psyche of this brain pattern and like this like idea of like, you know, I'm feeling scared, and to get a way of looking into my emotions, I'm gonna take this CBD drink, or I'm gonna indulge in whatever I'm doing and take this drink in order to counteract what I've done, right? Instead of just being like, why am I scared? Like, where's this anxiety really coming from? It allows folks to like I think on one hand, be okay with the anxiety because you have to kind of swim in it, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it almost becomes like a everyone's doing it, so I might as well do it. And everyone just kind of hates what they're doing, so I'm just gonna hate what I'm doing. And I fall into that trap too. And it takes a lot of like cognitive awareness to I think be like, okay, like unless you're truly in danger, there's like nothing scary about like Monday. It's no
Yeah.
different than Sunday. It's just another day that the sun rises. Like the earth doesn't know that it's a different day of the week. No one else knows. The birds don't know. The plants don't know. The dogs don't know. Cats don't know. Only humans create this like tension with Monday by calling by putting this like scary, you know, sense around it or like feeling around it, right?
And
And
getting
that
it the okay to have anxiety because
yeah,
you either went too hard during the weekend and you didn't really deal with your issues during that time on your off
yep,
days.
yeah,
I don't know. I want to figure out who is like, all right, bet let's just think of something that gets people to continue to drink and still
yeah.
indulge in their fears
And it keeps
on the
them in
weekend.
place, keeps people in place, man. Like they're like, you know what, I'm gonna be scared every Sunday, but I got this Sunday scaries thing. Everyone's,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
whatever. Instead of going to the gym or like taking a break from partying or reassessing and like really drilling down in and doing, I call it like personal homework. I call it like my admin day, where it's like I got a checklist of things I'm looking at, like bank accounts, bills I got to get paid, stuff maybe that I didn't do during that week, like
yeah,
laundry and things, and like it's like I think it's shocking for me, I guess, that like people are so scared of like what they've done or like so nervous to go into that next week because maybe they weren't setting themselves out correctly, and
yeah,
like and then you got on the other hand you have in that same scrolling pattern, right? You got the Sunday scary thing, but then you got like what is it, like virtual therapy? I forget like there's a bunch of like better I forget what the name of it is, but there's like all these like online therapies and things,
yeah,
basically acknowledging like yeah, there's a systemic issue with people not checking in with themselves and like working through life, and there's also on one hand like this just as popular from like a marketing standpoint, this like Sunday scary cure all, kind of like fad, and I find that interesting.
yeah. It, one of those things that just they find a market for it and they're like, oh, we could feed them a placebo pill and everyone's gonna rave about it.
Yeah, it perpetuates the behaviors that like really benefit those who are keeping folks in these corporate jobs, and
Yeah,
like
and I'm sure it's the alcohol big business that is probably the owner of this placebo fucking Sunday scares that keep people drinking.
yeah,
Could
alcohol.
be.
I mean, and I guarantee you circle up that ladder of corporate structure, right? It's going to be an alcohol company, but then on top of that, it might be a larger organization that you have no idea, like Johnson and Johnson, that own this, right? That are
Right.
like now keeping this wellness on one side, and then this like life deterioration behavioral system on the other side, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's no wonder why people are anxious all the time. We have corporations and constant feeds telling us like check on your health, but also like it's cool to party beyond like your kind of limit, and
Yeah.
living with this contradiction and figuring out kind of like where are you personally and like how do you navigate it. And so yeah, I think circling back to like coming back to this job, it's definitely taken a lot of like willpower and constantly checking in to be like I don't need to go back to those old patterns of behavior, and it's actually made it a
Yeah.
lot easier. Like I did start to take the Vyvanse, and then I was like actually that gave me so much anxiety. Like I was ramped up when I didn't need to be
Yeah.
ramped up, and my mind was just going too fast. And it's like after 3 months of not taking it, I was realizing like I was creating more anxiety than I needed to create, right?
Yeah.
And And I think it's like it's okay. At one point, I probably needed it. I wasn't maybe doing the homework I needed to do on my own self, and it was something that got me to where I am now. But just because you're prescribed something or like you've been told that you need this doesn't mean you need it forever. And like
Yeah,
it's okay to like check in and see how your brain is developing and like how you're growing. So
yeah. I mean, we can
I
go on
found
a whole
that.
thing about medicine and shit like that, but that's gonna take a conspiracy theory down the whole
Yeah,
other
yeah,
path.
yeah. We'll leave that
But
to the other podcasts out there that are
yeah,
talking about the
that's not
conspiracy
us. I'm
theories.
not no
Yeah.
doctor.
I'm not a doctor. Yeah,
Yeah,
we should preface this by saying all we do are we're just mentally
yeah,
aware,
that too.
cognitive, and we're just working on ourselves. And really, the
Yeah,
whole gist of this podcast too is to share our progress with people, to share like what we're seeing in our own situations, and like just kind of the funny stories that go along with it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
Full disclaimer: Mark and I are not doctors. We're not therapists.
nope,
We didn't take
nope,
sociology in college, except for a couple of elective classes. I
yep,
mean, all this is just self-learned through reading, meditation, bouncing shit off of each other as far as our issues and trying to help figure out each other for ourselves.
yep.
But yeah, we just want you guys to know this is nothing we do. This is all amateur, not professionals. So,
Yeah, we are
but
not. We're not trained therapists.
yeah. But going back to what you were saying is, about going back to work and whatnot, you change your environment, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's huge for a lot of us, even if you're in the same job. And I know, obviously not a lot of people probably have that, not, and I wouldn't say willingness, but maybe they don't have that freedom to take 3 months off or whatnot. But, they're like me, for example, there are ways to get around it. And, I think one of it is like, either rearranging your room, rearranging something that you're in all the time.
Yeah,
That right there alone is going to help you start to see a different environment and changing that and starting to put yourself in a different mindset. I think goes a big way for people who are in those positions right now. As far as like, I'm in this rut with work. I'm trying to figure it out. First things first, just switch up your room, change
yeah.
that up. Maybe obviously grab a book or something to that effect. But I think
I,
that's huge as far as your environment.
I think you nailed it too. And I guess I'll back up a little bit. The 3 months, and if folks are interested, you should look at what your work provides, if they provide anything. But a lot of states and the federal government will provide. It's called short-term disability leave, and due to um, federal law changes, I think when Obama was in office, mental health is covered on that. So check in with your doctor. It's pretty straightforward for like a lot of the applications. You go to your doctor, you get a note saying you got anxiety or depression, but talk to them, figured out there are options. States and the feds will basically help pay for your salary while you're on the leave, and you're also guaranteed job protection. Check it out online. Look at
Yeah,
your resources. Look at what the
yeah,
company provides. Take advantage of that stuff at work. Um, but to your other point, change your environment up. Like I'm in a whole new setup in terms of the office, in terms of the routines. Rearrange your room, I think, is a great idea. It really does change the energy of like you're waking up in a different environment, even if
yeah,
it's the same room. And it's like
yeah,
there's an interesting kind of talking point from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Similar to your point, Ricky, where it's like if you can't change up the what you're doing, change up the how you're doing it.
yeah,
You know,
for sure.
and I
Routine
think
is everything. Routine is subconsciously already in your brain. So if you're doing the same
mhm.
routine every day, maybe it's time to switch it up and try something different. Maybe every day you wake up and you listen to, I don't know, heavy metal, for example. That to me that would get me angry, but maybe switch it up and find something like classical or something that gets you slowly back into the day instead of just off the
Mhm.
jump. You're just like already
Yep.
like hypered up.
Yep.
Uh, for
That was
me,
me.
yeah, no, for me it was, first thing waking up, boom, on social media, just like seeing, what friends are doing, looking at all these people that got these fancy cars, doing all these vacations, and already not even fully awake yet. I'm already like, damn, I got a shitty life. Like we're
Yeah.
not even 10 minutes into the day, and I'm already telling myself I got a shitty life. And maybe 2 years ago, I took social media off my phone, at least it's off my like home screen, so it's something I don't look at, and I go straight to YouTube. I throw on a motivational speech for the morning, and I use that in my drive to work. And I mean, it changes a lot. I mean, it might not be instantaneously; it may take some time, but over time, gradually, that feeds into your brain, and next thing you know, like you're not waking up feeling like shit. You're not waking up thinking I want a better life. You're already looking at, I can do this. I'm better than that. So
And I will speak to that. You send me these videos, and bro, I blast them around to people, and it's like there's not a lot of people that reply to me when I share them, but those that do, it's like I really know that it changes their psyche because I'll listen to
Yeah,
every single one that he sends, and it gets me going too. And I think that's like a beautiful example right there of like a little behavior that you can change that you changed that has had like a tremendous effect. And like it's not instantaneous, but it's the brain is so powerful. It's like absorbing like these messages that you're constantly repeating into your awakened conscious of like, yeah, you can go do it. You like instead of having like that instant like you're comparing yourself on social media and you're having like a down day already. You're starting on an up day, and that's a choice. Like you made that choice,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people forget like it's little bits of like free will like that, like these choices that we're making, the intention behind everything we're doing,
yeah,
and then aligning it up to where we want to be and who we want to be and who we are, right? Like
yeah.
and and
A
going
lot of
easy
it,
on yourself.
and kind of what you're saying is, a lot of it, you almost feel like you don't have a choice. I mean,
Hmm.
me, I'm gonna say like I felt like I didn't have a choice, even though 100% is my choice. But like for example, going out, you can feel like not going out, but then someone hits you up and it's one of your good friends and like, hey, I want to go, let's go out. And, you're like, I don't really want to, and yeah, it's a little bit of peer pressure, but then you kind of feel forced to go, so then you go and then you drink and then things happen, blah blah blah. But it's like you can say no. You don't
Yeah,
have to say yes. You don't have to feel that peer pressure of others. You do have a choice, and your choice ultimately is your life. Your friends are
yeah,
going to change that for you. You got to take life into your own hands and realize, what, maybe I do have an issue. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should stop. For me, I tried a few times, but you create a personality over time. Obviously, people get to know who you are, and like, okay, well, Ricky drinks all the time. I can hit Ricky, even though you may be in that position where you're trying to change yourself. And then
right.
at that same time, you're like, well, I don't want to let them down, or well, they already know I drink, so why not drink? Like it
Yeah,
took me, I don't know, I stopped drinking, and then people would still hit me up, but like I was committed to saying no, so I kept started saying no, and over time, eventually, it got to the point where now people, even Mark, for example, when he came over, he's like, "Do you mind if I drink?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's cool." It's not even, "Hey, do you want to drink?" It's like, "Do you mind?"
yeah,
So it's crazy that I would never have thought that I would be in that position where someone's going to be like, "Hey, do you mind if I drink?" versus, "Hey, you want another shot?"
yeah.
So
That's
in a
powerful.
million years, I'm going to say it again. It's going to be a repetitive thing. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience and dedication to do that. But if you're set to your goal and you stick to what your choices are for yourself, it's going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah, leaning into your authentic self, and to your point, it's like it does take a little bit, but you set those boundaries up. You know what I mean? Like you are like, I have, I know who I am in my core, and what's happening on the outside is not reflecting who I am on the inside. And you got to start building up those boundaries with folks. And the beautiful thing about having those boundaries is that people who aren't really your friend or really trying to look out for you, they slowly start to fade out, and you
Yeah.
just don't see them again, and you
Yeah.
don't miss them because they weren't really contributing to who you are at your core anyway. Like you were
Yeah.
putting up with it, right?
It was contributing to
And
your external environment. That was an external environment person. It wasn't
yeah,
an internal environment person.
yeah, and there's always the internal environment is like I think of it like if you're gonna clean a house, clean the inside first and then do the outside, and it's like you're living with yourself 24/7, right? And you are the only one who knows what that house needs to make it clean inside. Like
Yeah.
even if it seems impossible to figure out, there are so many different methods and things like journaling and just free writing and coloring, things like that, that like all of a sudden things will start to kind of pop up of like, yeah, I really should be getting to bed earlier. Like I really don't need to be drinking. I don't really like who I am when I'm drinking, or I'm smoking, or
Yeah.
anything, any behavior that you feel truly isn't aligned to who you are at your core, like is easier found in that silence internally. And I think going back to like small behavior changes is like for me just starting to work out again. But the kickstart was like going with Ricky when I was back in Dallas not that long ago, and now I've been going like 4 to 5 times a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's like now that's a part of my habit. Like I feel like I like working out because internally I know that I need to work out. Like like there was something missing from that physical side of things, where it was like you kind of can see yourself getting smaller, decaying, and it's like it's so much easier to keep going down that same path than it is to like adjust. But like you said, man, like keep it up. It's not easy, but it's possible. And you know what? Got to be easy on yourself too. Forgive yourself when you
Yeah.
slip up and you don't maybe go to the gym, or maybe you didn't have a full up day, or whatever it is that you maybe aren't happy with. The only thing that's going to hold you back from getting up on that horse and like correcting that pattern of behavior is to like let it go internally, like forgive yourself 100% immediately as soon as it happens. As soon as you recognize it, understand like, yeah, we are dealing with a hardwired kind of machine in the brain, and like sometimes it short circuits and you gotta you know self correct, but it can only do
Yeah.
that if you allow yourself to do that, you know
Yeah. That's a big
and
thing. And I think
yeah.
it also comes down to, a huge thing is self discipline. A lot of people are going to say, like motivation is everything. Motivation comes and goes with the minutes. Self discipline
Hmm.
is those things that, I can have motivation for 10 minutes, and then someone might yell at me, or I might get down. I might see something I don't want to see, and all of a sudden my whole body changes from happy to sad, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't have the motivation to do it anymore. And
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah, everyone has those days. It's part of life. You're gonna have those days, but you're gonna have that self discipline. You know what? Even though I'm down, I still gotta go to the gym. Even if I go there and I just do X, Y, and Z, like I'm still gonna go get it done, because if
Yep.
I fall off this wagon, what else am I gonna fall off of?
Yeah. And I've had those days, even just getting back into working out, where I'm like, man, I'm tired. But I'm like, you know what? I'll just go to the gym, and, in my head, I'm like, it's okay, just go do it. And then sure enough, before I know it, I got energy again because I'm in the gym and I'm doing it, and I'm literally talking to myself out loud, looking in the mirrors. I'm working out like, good job, you're here, you're doing it, and that changes the psyche. Instead of being like, oh man, you're here and you're doing a weak set, it's like you're here and you're doing a set. Like
Yeah,
take away those negatives or positives. Like you're doing it because you're doing it, and that's the only thing that really matters. And
yeah.
you keep that discipline up, that consistency up. It's like making your bed. And I'm guilty of this because, well, I got these sheets. I got to get new sheets. The sheets, they're too soft. I don't know what the heck I got. They all stick together, but it's the
That's
biggest
that's
pain. You know what I mean? It's a pain in the butt, but I'm out there and I do it. I'm like whipping it every morning. But it feels good because then as soon as I walk into my room after I shower, like I work from home, so I have that benefit. It's also a negative though. Like if I don't make that bed and I'm working from home and I walk by that room, every time I walk by, I feel like I didn't start the day right.
yeah.
Like I feel like I'm a little disorganized or like something's off. But side note, I got to get new sheets. Test the sheets. Test the making the bed. Is it easy?
You
And
never
I
caught
also got,
yourself. You didn't
you know,
know. You
yeah,
couldn't
you
test them
don't
out.
know. Test them out. Keep the receipts, and people say receipts are useless nowadays,
Nah,
right? I
man,
used
you
to
need
say
them.
that you
Especially
need
if you go to
receipts.
Costco. You're trying to return something, but have that receipt.
Have that receipt. Shout
Yeah,
out
have that receipt.
Costco. Have that receipt. You know, but I
But
think, yeah,
no, pretty much what
we,
you're saying is, making your bed. This goes back a long time. I would say maybe college times. Um, Obviously, social media, because that's what all millennials use, is the fine stuff. I was reading
yep.
this. I was listening to this commemorative speech from a college, and it was like this Navy SEAL general or admiral, something like that. And and he was like, the
Oh
first thing you
yeah,
should do every day. Yeah, you've seen it. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of this or seen it. But the first thing he says, like, every day you should wake up, and make your bed. It's the best thing you should do, because obviously you're starting your day off on the right foot. And then going deeper, further into that is this book, Atomic Habits. I believe his
oh
name
yeah,
was James Clear.
yep.
I want to say James Clear.
It is.
If I butcher the name, it'll be in the show notes. But his big thing was habits, and keeping a scorecard. I forget the name of what he had it as. He has a certain name for it. I want to say it's a habit scorecard, something like that. But pretty much you should have a scorecard of all the habits you do per day. And you should tally them up. Are they good or are they negative? And then at the end of it, you should add them all up and see how many negative habits you do per day versus positive habits you do per day. So,
Yeah.
starting with making your bed is going to be huge, because then that's going to start you leading off to doing good habits the rest of the day. Um,
Yep.
I would say for anyone starting out, that is a great book. It's what I started with. My mom gave it to me,
Same.
and it flourished. This, I don't know where it came from. I never read until I read that book, and I just wanted to read more because his story is great. So
And that's a good point. Like, Atomic Habits is a book that I think everyone should really read. Yeah, my mom just got it. She's an executive. She loves it. And you're never too old or too young to dial in your habits and to really hold the mirror up to yourself. Yeah, because I think that's right in the beginning of the book. You create like a chart, basically, like scorecard of, good versus bad habits, and really around like who your identity is, right? Like who is it that you are trying to be, or who is it that you are, and then are your actions reflecting that identity, and what habits around that identity are contributing in a positive manner or like in a negative manner. And maybe not negative is a good word, but instead of negative, maybe just aren't contributing towards that identity.
Yeah.
They're just habits that aren't contributing towards who you want to be.
Yeah.
And that one is a solid book. And honestly, starting out on your day like that, like making the bed, that goes all the way through for me, at least. Like, I'm a big flosser. I floss my teeth, but I didn't always do that. But now every time I go to that dentist, every time without missing it, they're like, "Wow, your gums are in great condition. You must floss a lot." And for a while, I used to lie, like, "Yeah, I did," because I would just floss for like the 2 weeks leading up to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Brush right
And it's
before.
like, yeah. Then I'm like, why am I looking for approval from my dentist? What I'm looking for is like, I want to make sure I don't have a ton of cavities,
Yeah.
But it does feel good to get that compliment. So don't forget to compliment yourself,
Yeah.
and take that in. When someone compliments you and they're recognizing your behavior, acknowledge that, thank them for that, and spin it back on them and give them a compliment back. I think
Yeah.
positivity reaffirming itself is the only way to make positivity last. And happiness and stuff can be fleeting, but that mentality and the outlook can be really, really directly impacted by the habits that we choose to do, and
Yeah.
how we choose to like live our day each day with intention and action. And it also helps getting through some of those things that aren't that fun to do, right? Because it starts to make you feel good. Like, even if it's like, my favorite thing isn't to do the dishes, but part of my thing is I like to have the dishes done before I go to bed, so that when I wake up and I go to that kitchen, and I live alone, right? And so, like, if I wake up and go to bed and I see that mess, I can't be like, "Oh man, my roommates suck," or like, "They're so
You are your
messy."
roommate.
Yeah, I am the roommate. And so the best way to set up myself is to set up myself. And so, part of doing that is, doing those things that maybe aren't as fun, but you make a habit of it. And then you do start to feel good about it, because then you wake up and you're like, "All right, kitchen's looking good. I'm feeling good. My environment is matching my identity,"
Yeah.
And that's I think a big part of it too, kind of circling back to ways to kind of get yourself out of that funk about the Sunday scaries, and like rearranging your room is a perfect one. Listening to uplifting podcasts, your favorite song, maybe a dialed in playlist, meditating is a great one. They say, like, if you can meditate first thing in the morning, right before your brain starts to really kick up into that second, third gear, and there's brain waves out there. That'll be in the show notes too. It's like theta, beta, alpha, something like that, where you're kind of transcending out of that sleep stage, but you're really able to meditate and still being kind of like that. I think it's like a theta brainwave state. I don't know, asterisk on this, but the idea of being, you start out early and you get dialed in, you check in with yourself too as you're going about these things, and that checking in and constant checking in with, how am I feeling? What right now do I need to make myself feel whole? And then working towards doing whatever that is. Whether that's setting those appointments. For me today, doing my taxes.
Yeah.
So that's happening after this recording. I'm gonna go meet my CPA/buddy, and do the taxes. But I started getting all the paperwork and stuff ready, even though I hate doing taxes. I know it has to be done, and this is definitely my most complicated tax season. So, but it's like I started doing one thing at a time this week, where I'm just organizing paperwork, and now I'm ready to go, and it'll be pretty easy. I'll just kind of show up and I got everything ready to go.
Nice.
And that feels good.
Yeah, it feels accomplished, right?
Feels accomplished.
Definitely, that contributes to the rest of your week right there. Just
Yep.
Even if it's I'm a big fan of to-do lists, so that's something that helps you guys. To-do list. I got one on my phone, and it literally makes a little ting, like a little completion noise. That shit makes me feel good. So,
see,
just those small things. Definitely, they seem fleeting, but they're good.
To-do lists are a beautiful tool. Beautiful tool. Not only to-do lists, and then I have like a what I've done list essentially at the end of my day. If it wasn't on my to-do list, but it's something that I wanted to call myself out for doing, something that maybe I'm proud of, or a moment that happened that was unexpectedly, you know, a good moment, good positive moment. I write that down in my journal too. So every day I
Yeah.
got like 3 or 4 things that I really enjoyed about that day, and then I review that, and keeping track of stuff, checking things off, because that feels good. It's like literally put on your list of things to do is create a to-do list, and then you can cross that off as soon as you write it down. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because you're creating that list and you're
Yeah.
rewarding yourself.
And I want to go back to what you're saying as far as like, I think you were saying something like, yeah, you get to a point to where you write down the stuff that you did to help you go back and look and reflect and be like, okay, I did this, Um, reading this book right now. It's called, I think it's the, help me out here, How to Break Yourself, or, oh, I'm going to butcher this. Check the show notes. I'm so bad with this. It's
This
Dr.
is
Joe Dispenza. The
uh,
Habit of Breaking Yourself, or something like that. I'm butchering it right now.
breaking the habit of being yourself.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Reading that book right now, and obviously this journey has lasted for almost about 2 years now, and learning so much about myself, through how my mind was wired at the time, and now breaking that down. Um, Basically, what I started doing, I felt like I was at this plateau. Stopped drinking, started going to the gym. I gained muscle mass, mile and little small. Mile markers that I wanted to hit. I kind of hit all of those, and I started slowly fading back into like those sad moments, bringing up sad past times, things like that. And I was like, why can't I shake this? And I think I sent you the screenshot of my
Yeah,
journal a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to figure it out, like, why am I still in this rut, even though I've done so much? And I had to write it out. I was like, I think at the point in time, I think I was like 583 days sober, something like that. So I put that in there, it's like, I don't know why I'm feeling bad, but this is where I'm at. And I wrote down like 7 to 8 things, and finally it kind of just clicked. I'm like, holy crap, like rereading what I just typed out on my phone, just, I'm not even thinking about it, just clicking away, because the more you think about it now, it just becomes kind of fake. So I'm just kind of just clicking, click, 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 and just see where it goes. And I stop, and I'm like at number 10, and I go back and I reread the whole thing. I'm like, holy crap, like I've done so much in the last
mm-hmm.
2 years. So, now when I get those, I don't know, those anxiety moments, those stress moments, those moments of feeling inferior, or just not having that self confidence, I just go back in my mind and think of those thoughts, and it's like, holy shit, yeah. I mean, there's nothing to be sad about. Yeah, you had a rough past few years, but look how much you've done over those 10 years versus the amount you've done in 2.
I love that. I
It's a
love that.
crazy thing. So, one of the,
I think
yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say I think that's beautiful, and I think that's a very powerful exercise that like had unforeseen benefits for you. And it was like everyone has anxieties and gets down on themselves, and even recently I had a lot of transition periods too, and it's like I felt like all right, I'm doing these things, you're kind of moving through, you're checking this list off, and then it's like, oh man, and then those thoughts start to come back, and then it's like, wait, hit that pause button, look at everything that you're accomplishing and moving in that direction of who you are and identifying with, and like having that list written out right in front of you, being able to see that real time. Yeah, that's powerful. That's
Yeah.
real powerful. And
Yeah.
that changes the psyche. That changes that narrative. I call it like the broken record, where it's like the same thoughts just spinning in your head.
Yeah.
And the more you let it spin, it's like I envision like a drill, and it just creates a bigger and bigger hole and takes up more space than I have for other thoughts.
Yeah.
And take that power away by taking that drill out and letting all those things that you've just accomplished fill that back in, and you feel whole again. And
Yeah.
it's like,
You
from
really do.
HOLE to WHOLE.
Yeah. For real. And
You're going.
one of the things is, for one of my personal favorite people, Mel Robbins, she wrote this quote, or she said this quote, and it's like, when you intentionally act like the person you want to become, your brain sees you taking those actions. And I think that's key to what, pretty much sums up all this, what we're saying. It's all in your mind, it's all mental. As much as you think it's, your external factors, you, for example, I live at home still. I used to blame it because I didn't make enough money, or the world is too expensive. I used to blame things outside of my control for the reasons why I live the way I do. And, I mean, what, I'm 34 at this point, you can't tell me that if you're 34 that at home, you don't have some type of, you know, self anxiety, or your self confidence is
Mhm.
low. I mean, trying to date when you're 34 and you got tons of it at home. It's they're probably like, "What the fuck's this guy doing?"
But
but
it's
when you get
okay.
yeah, but when you get to know who I am and where I'm going and the things I wanted to accomplish, and especially where I was 2 to 3 years ago, most people are like, "Holy shit!" Like I probably doing the same thing. Like not to say that I've never lived on my own, and I have, and I think I had the most anxiety when I lived by myself. Like I had this huge FOMO, like living downtown Houston. It'd be 11 o'clock at night when I would get home, and the bars would be packed. And driving home tired, want to take a shower, want to eat, just chill out. But as soon as you see those bars packed, you see those girls out, you're like, all right, well, fuck. Like, let me go home. Let me get something to eat. Let me shower. Let me change. Let me go out. And then you black the fuck out, and you're back to where you didn't want to be. And it's just,
Yeah.
it was
Changing that environment.
Yeah, it was changing the environment. Going home, it kind of gave me a little bit of a handcuff to not come home so sloppy, or not be out all night. Which I'm not saying that I didn't do, because I did, but it did limit the amount of times that I did do it. And I don't know where
That's
I was going
learning.
with that, but
Well, that's progression right there, and that's also a key point of like you're not judging yourself. You're just acknowledging like this is where you were and this is where you are now, and celebrating how much you've done in those 2 years, because it was a drastic change. But realizing you had to change your environment to help make those changes come around.
That's where
that's
I'm
off.
going. Yeah,
That's that humility and self recognition of like, hey, I need help. Everyone needs help at some time. And if you don't have any family that's alive and you don't have any friends, then you got to be able to dial into yourself too and recognize like what it is that you can do in this moment to make you feel a little bit better, and what is it that's lacking, and how can you help to fill those holes and reach out to folks. And
not to
if
say
you're by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Not to say that you have to do it alone, but you're the only person that's going to do it for you. Luckily, we live in a time now where there's YouTube, there's social media, there's podcasts, there's a lot of read books. I mean, there's certain movies out there. There's a lot of resources that are for free that can help you guys get in the right path. But at the end of the day, you guys got to want it for yourselves. No one's going to want it for you. No one's going to push you to do anything. So
Yep.
it's a
And I
big
think
step.
It's kind of it makes me smile just to see how much progress you've made, I've made, and how much it rubs off on people too that are in our circles, and they realize that everyone else is kind of going through this, and the more people realize that they aren't alone, and they don't have to suffer alone, and they don't have to be in these cycles that they don't like alone. Like the hardest part is owning it and opening up, and then if you aren't judging yourself, no one else's judgment really matters, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be your harshest critic, because you're the person that you hear when you go to bed and when you wake up. And just if you are in a bad place, be open and honest with those around you. And if they don't reciprocate, they don't help out, then you already know that they're not meant to be around you long term.
Yeah.
But sometimes the humility, the self recognition, and like identifying where you want to go and where you're at is like a big part of it. And there's life, especially we're blessed enough to be living where we do, and have the jobs and the background and ability that we do. And like that to me is something that always gets me out of a funk, because like I look around and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is a pretty awesome life. Like this is a damn great life, even though it might be suffering mentally, because there's a lot of things that I want to do. Well, now we're starting to be able to recognize like how to do those things, and kind of get out of your own way a little bit.
Again,
but it's
everything's internal, man. Everything's internal. Like if you want that car, you want that job, it's within you to get it yourself. You can't blame the outside world. Obviously, there's going to be factors that maybe come up and you can't control those. But it's up to you to figure out how to go around those and bypass those to get to where you want to be.
And recognize like what's really important, right? Like the material things, they always come and go. Correct. Life comes and goes, and it's like everyone needs the basics and the fundamentals, or everyone should at least have those things. And if you don't, then I hope the world is going to move in a direction that like provides it for folks, because no one's better than anyone. And I think it's definitely on you to reach out to folks and sources and programs and whatever it is, but you got to do it, and you got to recognize from an internal standpoint,
Yeah.
right? Like no one can read your mind. As much as I like to think people can read my mind, especially dating, you know, and that probably goes both ways, right? Everyone in a relationship, either partner, you know, I wish we were mind readers because then it would make it a lot easier, but also a lot more boring and a lot less reflective and meaningful when you do start to realize like what it is you're working towards and who you're working towards becoming. My dad will always send me like little quotes, and it's like one that I like this week is the past is in your head, the future is in your hands.
Ooh,
So
hey, I like that. Yeah,
you know,
hindsight's 2020, bro.
yeah, the
Just
past is
learn from
always in
it.
your head. Learn from it. Don't dwell in
Yeah,
it. Learn from it, but then stop thinking about it as soon as it doesn't serve its purpose
yeah,
anymore. Because that's one thing that depression and anxiety love. They love to be the center of attention at
yeah,
all times. Don't give it to it. If something happened that you weren't happy with, get the takeaway and then
yeah,
get out and leave it away.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So I'll leave you with
Homework for
that.
the week.
The past is in your
Homework
head.
for the week.
Yeah. Homework for the week. I like it. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
sign it out. Be present. Learn from the past. Don't
Yeah.
live in it. And
Write it down.
keep up
Write
those
it down.
habits.
Give it
Write
a
it
week.
down.
Come
Yep.
back to us in 2 weeks. I did this, and I realized after a week, this is where I'm at. So
Yeah, let's hear your journey. Write in. Let us know how it's going. If you're first starting out in your mental health journey, or if you want book recommendations, we'll have some listed on our website. Go see a therapist. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family.
if you're not comfortable with a therapist,
don't be afraid.
go to a buddy you trust. It's as simple as that. Don't go to your local bartender. Don't go to your local stripper.
Trust me, they don't care. They're the best actors in the world. You want to see the best actors? They get paid every day, every minute to act that they care. Me. So go to someone that actually cares and that will be there when you stop going.
Once you stop paying, they don't give a fuck anymore. But can't say I haven't been there because I have. So
same. We can talk because we've been there. We get it. And that's why we don't judge. The most ratchet things
we've done
it. So there is no low bar, but I'm just going to let you know. I'm yelling back saying, hey, we've been there, done that. Watch out for that. My dad always used to say his job as a parent is to just let me know where the potholes are and to how to avoid them. You know what I mean?
We're here to do.
So
watch out for the potholes.
Well, that's what we're here to do. Yeah. We're just letting you know. We're not perfect. We don't know what's down the road for us, but we can tell you where we've been and where the potholes are and how to steer clear so that you can get to where you need to go safely and be the best version of who you want to be and can be. And this life is a quick ride, so let's be on it together and help one another out.
And this is why we're Dudes.Done.Deal.